Keep your pants on.
Yeah. To our lesson number 1, you can't get to the advantage that your counterplan doesn't solve in 30 seconds left in the debate. Our Saylor evidence indicates there's a whole bunch of progressive legislation that will pass out of the Morrison decision that would be able to solve or multiple things that drive the gender violence. Our Johnson evidence indicates that the Supreme Court must recognize its privilege in order to solve gender violence. Our Bhagwan evidence contextualizes this indicates that the Supreme Court is the critical linchpin in order to solve violence because it teaches and shapes cultural norms and teaches other judges. And our Davis evidence indicates that multiple people have settled outside the courts and provides an autonomous choice for them. We also have 2 pieces of Frosty evidence. Our first piece of Frosty evidence indicates that we have deinstitutionalized domestic violence, which paints it as a national picture that demands national solutions. Our second piece of Frosty evidence indicates that this would cause a reverberation throughout society that would cause changes in criminal law, which proves that even if the civil rights remedy sucks the way Volvo was presented sucks, the criminal justice system would eventually change, and we would start doing more about it. They say that Picard evidence rhetoric of the victim, there's not an impact extended this in the 2NR, and this evidence that they concede this is just about the VAWA. It's not about the civil rights remedy, there's no impact anyway. They say their piece of able evidence is able evidence inspired by a piece of Davis evidence indicates that we cause people to settle outside of court, which proves it's autonomous for women. This is also inspired by multiple pieces of horrible evidence indicates that there are multiple choices besides just commodifying or having money for it. They say the public-private debt dichotomy excludes the private. Listen, this is the entire choice argument record, so big about the one error that you do not have to go to the civil rights remedy if you do not want to. If you don't want monetary compensation, fine, don't have it. You don't want to do anything about it, don't. This means that you do not have to come out of the private sphere if you do not want to, which means even if they win, the privacy is important, that's fine. And they continue to be some evidence indicates that the public-private dichotomy telling women that they can't come out of the private sphere is what's responsible for gender violence. They say that we have a normalization of violence. I literally do not know what a normalization of violence is. That's the entirety of the explanation. They concede the Amnesty International indicates that this makes all forms of violence inevitable, and we've conceded there's only a choice. The poverty memes, they say that it's horrible because it's used as a justification for war. Listen, you can't bring up the war analogy after you've dropped it. And the block, they say the Foucault argument talks about this. Listen, social control is inevitable. All these case turns that are criticism do not have alternatives, which proves that they are non-unique in the status quo. Strived for the affirmative. They say the representation arguments. I will do our representation arguments here. But the representations were voting issue. Rickard flagged this in. You should give us leeway on these. The 1NR has a representations good card on their case turn. There was never an alternative. They concede that these representations are not unique. Conditionality applies here because they pick and choose which representations are bad. The biopower reps are, as well as the apocalyptic rhetoric, but not the commodification arguments because the negative would hate for us to generate offense here. This makes it impossible for us to have offense in this framework to leverage our offensive turns and reps, and these were all new in the 1NR, which creates a moving target since they were conditional. At worst, if this is not a voting issue, at worst, these representations are only bad because they justify those policies. The counterplan does the same type of policies, or if we prove that biopower is good in the context of the affirmative apocalyptic rhetoric is good, that proves that these are now offense for us. They say they have an internal link takeout. This was not dropped. Our record conceded our Bay evidence indicates a large majority of poverty. They've conceded our binder evidence. It is an impactor to their criticism that's critical to overall happiness within life. The environment advantage, they say that we have a new argument. No, we do not have a new argument. You read a biopower impact in the 1NR. No, in addition to a whole host load of other things. Our Ojan Kagan evidence that was just read on that other flow that we just flipped over indicates that we do not have the propensity to trigger biopower bad impacts in the United States. It indicates that we have things like sterilization laws, but we never quite took over and had complete genocide. This evidence is also comparative to Nazi Germany, which prefers that you prefer. They say that we would lead to a politics of the right. There's not an impact to the politics of the right anyway. They've conceded a couple of pieces of Luke evidence indicates that he votes affirmative because the environment cannot be solved by individual solutions alone, but it requires a national solution. They've conceded a whole host of reasons why the ESA is scary. UCS evidence indicates that, and our strict evidence indicates they solve keystone species loss. The impact is extinction. That was the one AC diner evidence. They say that we are critical to change. This isn't true. They say Coviel, listen, our Lifton evidence indicates we must imagine extinction in order to prevent it, which proves that we have a bigger impact than their Coviel evidence. It just indicates a genocide. Our Kurosawa evidence indicates that we must have apocalyptic rhetoric in order to eventually have change, because nobody would want to change the way society is if we all thought we'd go about living our everyday lives the same. They say that this is representation. I don't know how you can have a representation of biopower. Listen, if this is true, we have a representation of women being good in the 1AC. Please vote for us because we are winning this. There's no way to weigh these versus each other. Whose representation is worse? They say it doesn't contradict the counterplan. Yes, it does. Because you think it's the same thing. If you think they should get these reps arguments and the counterplan doesn't solve it, the impact is our diner evidence. They said that their colon evidence that we can prioritize them when we destroy. Listen, this is also not unique because we often prioritize which species we save in the status quo. Things like this are inevitable to question whether the essay can happen on a federal level and solve. This is the strict evidence, and it's charted after the affirm because they can see that the environment will collapse in the status quo. The counterplan debate. We can see that. First of all, I think we extended no solvency advocate. I don't think they answered that anyway. dispositionality, he says that we did not read this. Yes, we did. His dispositionality was bad because it justifies multiple rules, and the same as conditionality because a permutation functionally makes it go away, where they could read a bunch of add-ons and counterplay as a voting issue. He says it's not a moving target. Yes, it is, especially in a world in which they have multiple rules. He says the counterplain text is more predictable. They didn't extend their procedural arguments, so I say our plain text is pretty legit. He says that we need an in-round voting issue. This is an in-round voting issue because you functionally concede it, and it shaped the way the 2AC strategy went down. They have conceded it's Sullivan evidence that they would not be able to solve any of the case because of the way that gender violence, or because lower courts would not be able to follow it. These states solve debate, listen, therapeutic approaches don't solve. All 50 states don't have. They concede it's a cultural evidence. It indicates that local judges are arbitrary when it comes to like this. And our Hagen evidence indicates that the Morrison decision is block Title III of law, which is used for state funding, which proves the counterplay doesn't have, or the status quo solves doesn't have any funding because the federal Morrison decision will jeopardize it. This evidence indicates that is when approach they said the federal will fail. Now that's answered by our gold shield evidence, and all the evidence that was extended about the federal government being key on the gender advantage. He says that they mobilized because of, they did not mobilize because of it. This was the cross-examination pair. Also, the last piece of gold bar evidence indicates that they do not solve even the world in which the counterplay and employer rotation is just a test competitiveness. It's not a voting issue. The criticism, he says that voting reps, he said, as they're not going to concede any representations. Listen, commodification is inevitable in the status quo. They've also conceded two pieces of blue book evidence and a Wigley piece of evidence indicates that tort law is good in the context of Morrison because we do not force you to commodify yourself, so you can have other types of this. There are Pope evidence. They've also conceded and indicate they would have a lack of intervention, which proves that women would never reach the political sphere. There's not no value to life for tort law because women make the autonomous choice. All of our tort law good evidence that was read in this. Oh, new perms. Yeah, I answered that one. Okay. Yeah.